Hi there, I'm the Reverend Danny Crosby, a Unitarian minister serving congregations in Altrincham and in Urmston in the northwest of England. And I'm offering this devotion as a balm for the heart, for the mind, for the spirit, and for the soul. It's titled, Winter. There is a time for everything under the sun. Now, I'm usually at my most fatigued on Mondays. Some days often take a lot out of me. You'd expect that in my line of work, I guess. I know some folk don't think I do much during the rest of the week, but I do, I have lost count of the number of times I've been asked after a Sunday service, so what do you do the rest of the week? I know that sometimes people are just being funny, but at other times the question is asked in all seriousness. I'm not going to begin to recite it now, but I'm a busy man. People do sometimes ask the funniest and most obvious questions. A young woman did come up to me in a bar recently and asked me if I came there do I come here often? I think she was joking, but you never know, do you? She was half my age, so I think she was joking. But in all seriousness, Monday can be a low energy day for me. A day when my mood is usually, at its lowest, and generally I just go through the basic motions and try and get as much done as I can. Do some basic activities, but never quite at my brightest. I clear up from what's been left from the week before, and I begin to build for the week ahead. It's a threshold kind of day, I guess, I don't know. A preparation kind of day, maybe it's more accurate. And Monday always tends to have a wintry kind of feel about it, actually. It's that kind of trudging kind of day, really. Now, did you know that last Monday has been given a special name, given by marketing people who kind of want us to, if we're feeling a bit low, if we go and spend money on Blue Monday, we'll feel a bit better. That's the idea of it. And it's called Blue Monday. Not the song by New Order, but this a bit like Black Friday, I guess, really. That's now come into public consciousness. But Blue Monday's been with us for quite some time. And it's a day that they say is the hardest day of the year for many folk. The Christmas spirit has all gone and we're right in the depths of winter. It is dark, it is cold, there is so little light around. Spring seems so far, far away. There's not even going to be another public holiday here in England until Easter, and that seems a long way into the distance. The daylight hours, though, are going to increase over the coming weeks, but still we must face winter. January and February can be difficult as we feel stuck in the cold on these dark winter's evenings. And it's been cold this week. It's felt like winter all week. It seems like we've gone through a few long winters, though, doesn't it, of late? This one seems as hard as the last 2 or 3, really. Already they're calling it a winter of discontent. Life does seem a challenge at times. When will winter be finally over, so many of us cry? But there is light. I see the light all around me. Winter is not an easy time. So many of us want it over as soon as possible. We want spring and the new birth and all and life that the new birth brings. But that's not the way to live. And we know it really. To live always looking towards the spring yet to come is to fail to fully experience what is here right now. There's such a richness in the dark, cold of winter, and we need to feel the richness. We need to feel the cold of winter and allow our eyes to adjust to the darkness. There is a beautiful wonder about winter that we could well do well to embrace. There's a need to embrace and fully experience the darkness, the lifelessness, the starkness, the coldness, the bite of this time of year. We should not wish it away. For everything there is a season and a time for everything under the sun. We need winter as hard as winter sometimes feels. All things need to properly come to an end in order for what is new to truly come to fruition. The beauty and the meaning of all of life comes in the finiteness of life. Last winter was a tough time for me personally, but I came through it. I faithfully stuck at things, and this year it's almost as if I'm another person again. Last Monday may have supposedly been Blue Monday, but I did not feel blue at all. In fact, I felt as alert and as energized as I've ever done. I normally do on a Monday. It was a great Monday, actually. I had a lovely day just going about my daily business, noticing the wintry world all around me. Molly and I went and enjoyed a good long 2 hour walk around Altrincham and a great play in the park. She was 6 months old last Monday, and I enjoyed making the occasion and so special and enjoying this precious blessing that's become the heart of my life, really. And as we walked around, I enjoyed observing the changing winter scene that surrounded us. Beautiful. Yes, winter can look bleak and barren at times, but it didn't feel like that last Monday, despite the whole world telling me it was Blue Monday. Yeah, we had a great time in the park, and as Molly ran off to play with a gang of dogs, I found myself examining, just staring, just looking at a barren tree. It looked vulnerable just standing there all alone, and yet I knew it was alive as it stood there so bold and upright. It reminded me of my own vulnerability and my exposure to the cold of winter and to the challenges of life. Challenges I do not shrink from, by the way, these days, although from time to time I do feel the temptation of shrinking. I felt like that once or twice in the last year or so, but not now. We all want to feel safe, protected and warm, not cold, exposed and vulnerable. It is a refuge that we all seek, and we often it is a refuge that folks seek and believe within religion and spirituality, I think, actually, to feel safe and protected. The sense that we are protected and safe. But is that sense, is it realistic to look for this? So often we seek protection from the troubles of life, from life's winter. But if life has taught me anything, it's shown me that the insulation I often seek so quickly, so easily, is not insulation. It becomes isolation. I cut myself off. These attempts to protect myself from exposure often only increase the suffering. They create a suffering within the suffering. If I've learned anything in life, it's that self-protection so often cuts you off and leaves you feeling all alone once again. I keep them out. Boundaries so quickly become barriers, become walls. Keeps us lonely and isolated in our own the treadmill of our own little lives. It's not the way to live. Now, one of the advantages of ministry is that ministry forces you to pay attention to the passing seasons. By doing so, you learn to appreciate what each season has to offer. Winter has so much to offer if we just let ourselves fully appreciate the winter. The trees in winter have much to teach we who would prefer to hibernate. If I've learned anything, I've learned that the spiritual life is about living as openly and perhaps as vulnerably as possible, really. It's about accepting life as it actually is, reality as it actually is, which is a vulnerable experience, actually. It's about standing there upright, arms outstretched in the cold vulnerability of life, waiting for the time of rebirth and renewal in whatever form that takes, just like those trees in winter. And the spiritual life is also about not clinging. The power of our finite lives is in our lives' impermanence, as it is in all created life. Thus, by accepting impermanence, we see there is a time for everything under the sun, including our own deaths. The power and the beauty of our lives comes in our life's finiteness. Nothing ever lasts forever. That said, our lives and the lives of our loved ones do sometimes come to come to an end. Life still goes on, and that love still remains somehow. To quote Ecclesiastes 1 verse 4, generations come and generations go, but the earth abides forever. To continue, for everything there is a season. The wisdom contained within the book of Ecclesiastes, particularly the verses from the 3rd chapter, has stood the test of time. And there's good reason for this. It speaks an eternal and universal truth that generation after generation have found that they can relate to. The power of this ancient source lays in its ability to link we who live today with the generations that have walked the earth before us. We all of us have travelled many and varied journeys and lived through all the seasons of life. We learn that nothing is permanent, that nothing lasts forever. No one will ever escape the pain of life, but that ought not to bring despair, because if we remain open, we will also know life's joy. Yes, there is a time to mourn, but there's also a time to dance. Yes, there is a time to weep, but there is also a time to laugh. The last 12 months of my life has shown this to me once again. For everything there is a season and a time for every matter under heaven. There are many seasons in our lives, just as there are many different emotions. Yes, sometimes we can experience all those emotions in one single day, just as we can experience 4 seasons in one day. There is a time and perhaps a place for all of them, for to diminish any of them is to deny what it is to be fully human. Yes, there is a time to weep, just as there is a time to laugh, and there's a time to mourn, just as much as there is a time to dance. I have wept many times this last year, and I have held others in their suffering too. That said, I've laughed so many times too. I have seen joy, and I have seen how life continues on. Again, to repeat the Ecclesiastes 1 verse 4. Generations come and generations go, but the earth abides forever. Ecclesiastes really speaks to me. It reveals an authentic truth. That's why I love Ecclesiastes. I love it because it's real, it's authentic, like the changing seasons. Life is forever changing. Life is impermanent. Nothing lasts forever. As Rami Shapiro writes of the wisdom of Ecclesiastes, the world revealed in Ecclesiastes is an impermanent world of continual emptying. Ecclesiastes calls this Havel. Trying to grasp something in this world, trying to hold on to anything in this world leaves you breathless, exhausted, and anxious. This impermanence is the nature of nature, and because this is so, the world lacks surety and certainty. Change and the unknowing that change carries with it are the hallmarks of life. In Ecclesiastes, you spend no time longing for escape from impermanence, but rather learn to live well in the midst of it. This is what the book of Ecclesiastes wants to tell us. This is why it was written. This is why it is still read some 2,500 years later. It speaks as much to we who live now, I would say, as it did to those that wrote it 2,500 years ago. It's one of those, it speaks a universal truth through all time. Ecclesiastes teaches me what it means to live authentically, to live truly religiously. That said, it is a religion that is not pointing to salvation beyond this life, but salvation within this life. This is to me the essence of my Unitarian faith, I would say. It's not pointing to something beyond life, no one knows about that, but something within this life, which you can only truly experience by letting go of control and allowing life to have its way with you. Every season of life, to feel every feeling of life, to know everything, to experience everything by not holding on to anything. In so doing, you will live the life you've been given, the ultimate gift actually, the ultimate grace. And the next life whatever the next life may be, well, that'll take care of itself. But none of us know. Last Monday was meant to be the most miserable day of the year, Blue Monday, but I didn't feel like that myself. I utterly felt the joy of living, actually, as I connected to life all around me, as well as in my own heart. I felt as close to God as I have ever done. That is not to say I was turning away from the suffering in this world. There has been pain and suffering in my own life this last year. There is pain and suffering in those I hold most dear. Right now, 4 of them rang me on Monday as I was in a place of bliss and they were suffering. But I did not turn away, nor did I try to fix them. I just shared in their pain, if only for a little while. This week I have been with many people experiencing the most difficult kinds of suffering. There's so much pain in those I hold so dear to my heart. And there is also a time to relive my own suffering in the past. I need to actually, in order to empathize with others, in order to minister, in order to serve, in order to be with another in their suffering. The pain is the price I pay for daring to love. It's the pearl of the greatest price, though. It is the refusal to close myself off to this pain that allows me to do the things I am here to do. It gives me meaning even in the most painful of suffering. And it also enables me to know joy, even when there is suffering around me. This is life. This is Ecclesiastes. Generations come and generations go, but the earth abides forever. And so does love, actually. Something beautiful remains even when we lose those that we love. We cannot escape the suffering in life. We cannot cling to anything, even those things and those people that we love the most. The generations come and the generations go, just as the seasons do. That said, we can still plant seeds of love right here, right now. In fact, we need to. We can walk side by side with one another. We can hold each other and bear witness to each other's tears and fears and pain. We can also laugh and we can also dance and we can make merry even in the midst of real suffering. We can live our lives fully regardless of how many seasons we've got left, and we don't know. And when that time comes, we can let go of our lives with dignity and with grace. Remembering always that while our individual lives come and go, just like the seasons, both the earth and love abides forever. I'm going to end with some final words of blessing. You know, we all need to bless more, and we can all bless. We begin to bless when we offer our whole hearts to life. So some final words of blessing. Generations come and generations go, but the earth abides forever. Let us now move forward in our lives in humility, acceptance, and in grace. Let us embrace the winter, even though it sometimes bites. May we be fully awake and alive to all that life offers to us, and when the time comes, to let go in love. And may we carry this vision of love with us, and may we do so in all that we feel, in all that we think, in all that we say, and all that we do.